Hello and welcome to this first look exploring session looking at Octavia, not by Seneca, one of the translations of Seneca made in the early years of Elizabeth I, and published not quite every year or every so often most of them for the first few years of her reign, and then they're all gathered together as his 10 tragedies in 1581. So this one, as I say, is one of two Senecan tragedies which they're pretty much certain that they're not by Seneca. This one even more so because Seneca is in it. And I suppose he wasn't incapable of writing about himself, I'm sure, but it maybe it was a bit weird, so that doesn't seem that's likely. This one is translated by Thomas Nuce, who we have not encountered before. So, in fact, I think it's his only one of the 10 tragedies. So we'll find out what their writing style is like. Just scanning through it, I'm seeing much shorter verse lines. It doesn't look like we're going to be blessed with 14ers today, but who knows? I may be wrong on that front. Anyway, reading today, the chorus Nero and Poppaea is...
Hello, I'm Eric. I am many people.
Reading Nuntius and Nutrix is...
Hello, I'm Tom from Brighton.
Reading Octavia and Prefectus is...
Hi, I'm Angela in London.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I will be reading Seneca and Agrippina, so that'll be fun. But without further ado, we're going to dive into the text with Act 1, Scene 1, and we have the arrival of Octavia to the scene.
Now that Aurora with glittering streams the glading stars from sky doth chase, Sir Phoebus pert with spouting beams from dewy east doth mount apace, and with his cheerful looks doth yield unto the world a gladsome day. Go to, O wretch, with ample field of heavy cares oppressed thy grievous wanted plaints recount. Do not alone with sighs and howls the Siche Alcones surmount, but also pass the Pandian fowls. More irksome is thy state than theirs, O mother dear, whose death by fits I nil lament, but still shed tears. My ground of grief in thee it sits. If that in shade of darksome den perceiving sense at all remain, hear out at large, O mother, then my great complaints and grievous pain. O that immortal Clothos' wrist had torn in twain my vital thread, ere I unto my grief had wist thy wounds and face of sanguine red. O day, which aye doth me annoy, since that time did I more desire the fearful darkness to enjoy than Phoebus' fresh and fair attire. I have abode the bitter hest of stepdame dire in mother's place. I have abode her cruel breast, her stomach stout and fighting face. She for spite unto my case, a doleful and a grave errand, to bridegroom's chamber spousal space, the Stygian flashing flames brought in. And thee, alas, most piteous sire, with traitorous trains hath she bereft of breathing soul with poisoned mire, to whom erewhile the world all left unvanquished from the ocean seas by martial feats did freely yield, and did subdue with wondrous ease the Britain brutes that fled the field, whom living at their proper sway no Roman power did erst invade. Now lo, full well lament I may, thy spouse deceit thy prowess hath laid. And now thy court and child of yore with homage serve a tyrant's law.
Now we move into the second scene with Nutrix. We don't know whether Octavia is still about or not.
Whom so glistening pomp of royal place, with sudden sight I numbered doth quite disgrace. Who so at courtly fleeting ebbing blaze astonished what saw, himself doth much amaze. Lo, see of late the great and mighty stock by lurking fortunes, sudden forced knock, of Claudius quite subvert and clean extinct. 2-4 whom helmed the world in his precinct. The British ocean coast that long was free, he ruled at will and made it to agree. Their Roman galley great for to embrace, lo, he that Titanus people did first chase, and seas unknown to any Roman weight, with lusty shearing ships did outdrate, and safe amid the savage fleet did fight, and ruffling surges seas had nothing dread. By cruel spouses guilt doth lie all dead. Her son, like more fiend than tiger fierce, of natural mother makes a funeral hearse, whose brother drenched deep in with poisoned cup, poor Britannic his senseless soul gave up. Octavia's sister, an unhappy make, doth sore lament her case for Britain's sake. Nay, can her rueful pious sorrow slake, though Nero's wrath do sore constrain her grace, she nil esteems the secret closet place, but boiling still with equal praise, disdain, with mutual hate gainst him doth burn again. My true and trusty love that I do bear, in vain I see doth strive to comfort her. Revenging greedy grief doth straight reprieve, to appease her smart and counsel that I give. Nor flame of worthy breast doth sore relent, but heaps of grief her courage do augment. Alas, that grisly deeds for to ensure my fear foreseeth. God grant it not to be true.
Act 1, Scene 3, Octavia and Nutrix.
O staggering state! O peerless ill! With ease, Electra, I repeat, and call to mind thy morning will. With watered eyes like smarting sweat, thou mightst lament thy father slain, still hoping that thy brother might that deadly deed revenge again, whom thou, O tender, loving wight, didst safely shield from bloody foe, and natural love did closely keep. But Nero's dreaded visage, lo, doth fear me that I dare not weep, nor wail my parents' ruthful case, but cruel lot this slaughter court, nay, suffers me this genial face to dash with tears, to dearly bought with brother's blood, who only was mine only hope in all my grief, and of so many mischiefs, as my comfort great and sole relief. Now, lo, reserved for greater care, and to abide more lingering pain, of noble famous lineage bear, a drooping shade I do remain.
My lady's heavy voice, methought, within my listening ear can sound, and snailish age is going soft, unto her throughs I bound.
O nurse, our dolour's witness sure by coral cheeks distilling rain, and heavy hearts complaint endure.
Alas, what day shall rid of pain, with care your well-nigh wasted heart?
That sends this guiltless ghost to grave.
This talk, good madame, set apart.
In rule my state their destinies have, and not thy prayers, O matron just.
The down soft, easy God shall give your troubled mind a time, I trust, more sweet than ever you did live, with fural fair as one content, and glozed face, but only please your man and make he will relent.
The lion fierce I shall appeal, and sooner tame the tiger stout than mankind tyrant's brutish beast. He spites the noble raced rout, condemns high powers, disdains the least, may well use that princely weed which venomous parent wrapped him in by huge unspeakable grisly deed. Although that white unthankful grin in kingly throne that he doth reign, through cruel cursed mother's aid, although he pay with death again so great a gift, it shall be said, and after fates in long spent age, that woman white shall have alway this eloge yet, and saying sage, that he by her doth bear the sway.
Let not your rageous mind so walk, but do compress your moody talk.
Act 1, Scene 4, Octavia and Nutrix, continued.
Though much I bear that boiling breast do beat, and tolerably take divorcement's threat, death's only deadly dart I see an end of all my broil and pinching pain can send. What pleasant light to me, O wretch, is left, my natural mother slain, and sire bereft, of breathing life by treason and by guilt, of brother eke deprived, with miseries spilt, and wailing overcome, kept down with care, envied of make which I dare not declare. To maiden subject now, and now defied, what pleasant late light can me, O wretch, abide, with fearful heart suspecting always aught, because I would no wicked deed were wrought? Not that I fear death's grisly grinning face, God grant I do not so revenge my case, a better deed to die, for to behold the tyrant's visage grim, with brows uprolled, and with soft tender lips my foe to kiss, and stand in awe of becks and nods of his, whose will to please my grief with cares effired, since brother's death by wicked wile conspired, could never once vouchsafe for to sustain less grief to die than thus to live in pain. His empire Nero rules and joys in blood, the cause and ground of death that tyrant would. How oft, alas, doth fancy fondly feign, when slumber sweet in pensive parts doth reign, and sleep in eyes all tired with tears doth rest. I apprehend dear Britain's lively breast, ere while methinks his feeble shivering hands he fenceth sure with deadly blazing brands, and fiercely on his brother Nero's face with sturdy stinging strokes he flies apace, ere while the like wretch recoileth back again, and to my thews for aid retires amain. Him foaming foe pursues with hast to have, and while my brother I desire to save, and in my clasped arms to shield him free, his gory bloodied falchion keen I see, the boisterous ramping fiend to tug and hail, though out my shivering limbs as ashes pale. Forthwith a mighty trembling chattering quake from weary limbs all supple sleep doth shake, and makes me woeful wretch for to recount my wailing sobbing sorrows that surmount. Here too, put to that gorgeous stately bows, all glistering bright with spoils of Claudius' house, his parent dear in bubbling boat did douse, that wicked son, this fisking dame to please, whom yet escaping dangers great of seas, he fiercer freak than waves that scantly rest, with bloody blade her bowels did unbreast. What hope of health can me, O wretch, abide, that after them the like way I should not ride? My special foe, triumphant wise, doth wait, with naked nates to press by lovers' sleight, our spousal, pure and clean unspotted bed, 'gainst whom she burns with deadly food blood red, and for a meed of filthy strumpet sport she causeth make from spouse for to divort. O ancient sire, step forth from limbo lake, thy daughter's heavy troublous cares to slake. O your twiggeted hellish porch unfold, that down through gaping ground I may be rolled.
O piteous wretch, in vain, alas, in vain, Thou callest upon thy father's senseless sprite, in whom, God wot, there doth no care remain of mortal blood, that here doth take delight. Shall he, think you, assuaged your sorrow cheer, or shape you forth some slight, they appall your pain, that could prefer before this Britain dear the imperial throne a strange begotten swain, and with incestual love benumbed quite, his brother Germanic's daughter that could plight, and join to him in solemn marriage rites. With woeful and unlucky lovers' lights, here sprang the royal of Hurly-Burly great. Here beastly venomous slaughter gan to sweat. Here wildly treason trains appeared first. Here rules desired and brutish bloody thirst. Silius, first Prince Claudius' son-in-law, a bloody mangled offering fall we saw, that in our grace Hymelian bed I matched with you, he might not couch his head. O murderous slaughter, worthy endless blame, indeed of gift unto that wanton dame, a carass, cold, poor soul, and cureless corse. Selene was given against his will perforce, and falsely then attached of traitor's crime, as one conspiring death in Claudius' time. With loathsome stakes spewed out upon the wall, he all bedashed your father's princely hall. F stepped unto servile palace stroke, to filthy vice's law, one easily broke, of devilish wicked with his princocks proud, of stepdame's wife Prince Claudius' son avowed, whom deadly dame did bloody match alight, and thee against thy will for fear did plight. Though through which success this dame of courage fine durst venture mighty Jove to undermine, who can so many cursed kinds report of wicked hopes and acts in any sort. Of such a woman glossed glides can name, and ramparts at rule by all degrees of shame. Then holy sacred zeal put out of grace her staggering steps, directed forth apace, and stern eminence in with deadly steps of Claudius' court, all deserved left yelps, and with her dreary drakes of Stygian fort, hath quite disdained the sacred princely port, and raging riven in twain both nature's law and rights of to wrongs mishappen, for hath tore that haughty-minded dame first gave her make a deadly poisoned cup his thirst to slake. Straightways again through vile unkindly touch her Nero caused with him in hell to couch, and thee, unhappy Brit, in all that broil till that of breath and life did despoil. Think greedily bloody tyrant never stent, whose doleful death for aye we may lament, while unto the world the star that shone that and was that the stay of princely court alone. Now lo, light ash easily puffed a fawn, and grisly ghost to grave with touch eye borne, whom blessed babe thy stepdame did lament, nor from her gushing tears did sacrifice scarce relent, when as she gave each trim appointed part, and goodly portrayed limbs with nature's art, of flaming stack to be devoured quite, and saw the scorching fervent fire in sight, thy naked joints to raven up apace, and like the flittering god thy comely face.
Dispatch he me, lest with this hand he fall.
That power you nature granted not at all.
But wondrous dolour, great and wrathful ire, and miseries will it grant without desire.
Nay, rather cause your angry mood make, with supple cheer his fury for to slake.
What, that he will by guilt, once slain before, alive again my brother me restore?
Nay, safe that you may live and issue bear your father's ancient court for to repair.
That court doth wait another brood, they say, and poor Brit's death tugs me another way.
Yet let the city's love unto your grace your troubled mind confirm but for a space.
Their minds so pressed to pleasure me, I know, great comfort brings, but do not slake my woe.
Of mighty power and people have been I.
But prince's force does bear the greater sway.
He will respect his lawful wedded wife.
His minion brave cannot so lead her life,
Of no man she esteemed.
but dear to make.
She cannot truly yet of wifehood crake.
Ere long she shall a mother eke be made, so far therein I dare most boldly wade.
His youthful heat at first in filthy love with lusty crusty pangs doth boil above. The alike courage quickly cold in lust apace, as vapour soon extinct in flame gives place. But wholly loving, chaste, unspotted spouse, her love endured I with sacred vows, that wanton first that there dost couch her head, and tumbling stained quite your spousal bed. And being but your maid hath ruled long, her sovereign lord with beauty's grace bestonged, that pranked paramour pert shall couch with pain, when she your grace shall see preferred again. For Poppaea subject is and meek of sprite, and now begins her ghostly tombs to dight, whereby she closely granted doth bewray her secret hidden fear each other day. That swift, unconstant, doubled-winged lad with clout before his blinded eyes I clad, that fickle-brained god, the unhappy boy, she shall leave her in the midst of all her joy. Although for beauty bright the bell she bare, and godly glistening garments now she wear, and now to vaunt herself in gorgeous gear, she shall not long enjoy this gladsome cheer. Be not dismayed, madam, for such like pain the queen of gods was forced to sustain, when to each pleasant shape the heavenly guide and sire of gods I turned from sky did glide, the swan's white wings to see how they could fadge, he did on him, and cuckold's bullish badge. That god shone bright in golden rainy shower to Danus' breasts through top of forted tower, and twinkling stars, the twins of Leda bright, from Polemarch's Somme and Castor call aright. In large and ample space of starry scope, with crystalline glistening faces shine wide ope, and Simulus' son, who Bacchus we do call, in heavenly birthright doth himself I stall, and Hercules with puissant champion stout, his sturdy brawns, his Hebes winds about, nor once regards how godless Juno fair, whose lowering stepdame now she is I framed, that while on earth his prowess did he declare, against that marriage, I with some inflamed. Yet lo, her wise and costly couched grief, debonair face, obscenence to her lief, caused him at length his mind for to remove, through mortal fears estranged from Juno's love. And now with mighty heavenly goddess great, no more a dread of mortal strumpets' feet. Aloft, alone in cloudy bower contents the thundering Lord, which now to her relents. Now, nor now with earthly ladies beauty bright, I frayed, leaves this starry spectre aright. Now, madam, sith on earth your powers is pight, and have on earth Queen Juno's princely palace, and sisters are, and wife to Nero's grace, your wondrous restless dolors great appease.
Nay, sooner shall the roaring frothy seas and mounting flashing floors ematch the sky, and smoking stifling parching fire dry with dankish pools agree and watery fen, and grisly Pluto's filthy felted den with star-bright heaven shall sooner coupled be, and shining light with gloomy shades agree, and with the clear dry day, the dewy night, than unto servile law of husband white, that brutish wise in blood takes his delight. My heavy woeful mind can I address, while brother's death my heart doth still possess. Oh, that of heavenly powers, the prince and sire, that shogs and shakes the earth with thundering fire, and with his wondrous, fearful, cursed cracks, and strange misshapen monsters that he makes, our fearful musing minds doth sore amaze, would coin some cureless burning wildflower blaze, to pelt and pash with thumping fire bright, that devilish pate, that cruel cursed wight. We saw from heaven, with beams forth shooting far, doubtless a dreadful hoary blazing star, that spouted out a mortal fiery flake, whose force a prince's blood can only slake. Even where that hating Carmen slow boot, with chillings cold, all stark of frozen pole, doth guide aright Charles's whirling running rote, instead of night that never away doth roll. Lo, now the open air in every street with doggish tyrant's breath is poisoned quite, and dreadful stars some sudden death do threat to people ruled by wicked Nero's sprite. To so stern a freak or mankind tyrant stout, not Tellus with the gods displeased brought out. When mighty Jove neglected, she uphauled huge, ugly, monstrous Typhon to the world. A sorer plague, a cleaner, scouring scourge, with bloody paws that city's bounds doth purge. Is Nero dire, this cruel cursed wight, that doth himself 'gainst God and man indite, and thrusts from sacred shrines their quiet port, and goodly temples gay, the sancted sort, that city's dwellers puts from country's fort, that hath bereft his brother of his life, and launched his mother's sides with gory knife? Yet doth this present lightsome day enjoy, and leads his life, that doth us sore annoy. O Father of heaven, in vain why dost thou throw thy great unvanquished rattling thundering blow upon the whistling woods and ample seas, with force of princely power thy wrath to appease? O such an hurtful and pernicious freak, thy due and just conceived ire to wreak! Why stay thy mighty puissant brand so long, ere thou fling down thy rattling cracking throng? O Lord, that Nero once might pay the price of all his devilish deeds and every vice, the whole wide world's tyrant stern, where he a stroke doth bear, where he overlaid with burdenous yoke of princely sire y born, but doth defame with beastly manners vile his princely name.
Unworth he is your spousal chamber palace, but yet your destiny's force you must embrace, and well abide your fortune's crooked race, nor move unkindly Nero's galley ire. One day, perchance, there will, as I desire, some god revenge your lamentable case, and once I trust a gladsome day shall be when you shall joy afresh in wanton place.
Ah, no, now, long this court, alas, we see with heavy wrath of God's displeased ire hath overcharged been, which Venus, dire with Messalina's monstrous ramping lust, she first hath brought down into the dust, who madly married to Prince Claudius Grace, but little mindful then of that same case, and not regarding much the appointed pain, with cursed cressets married once again. To which unlucky ancestral bridal bed, that drozzle dire, that furious slut Erin, with hanging hair about her hellish head, and girt with snakes, with deadly step went in, and flaming brands from spousal chamber caught, in both their bloods y-bathed, hath quenched clean, and hath incensed Prince Claudius' burning thought, in bloody rattling stroke to pass all mean. My mother, first of wretches all the most, with stripe of deadly sword gave up her ghost, and now extinguished quite, left me forlorn, with dolours, pining pangs, and mourning worn. And after her, in hellish team doth hail, unto the senseless souls of Pluto's jail, her make, and Britannic her son that way. And first this ruinous court did she betray.
Let be, madam, with tears your face to dight, nay, so renew your bitter wailing just, in case troubling now your parents' piteous sprite, that paid hath the price of raging lust.
And we go into scene 5, the chorus.
God grant the talk we heard of late to the rashly trusted everywhere, and blown abroad through each estate no badge of truth that it may bear, and that no fresh espoused dame our prince's thews do enter in, but that Octavia keep the same, and that the seed of Claudius can may once bring forth some pledge of peace, that to the world rest may redound, and wrangling strife may easily cease, and Rome retain her great renown. The peerless princess Juno height her brother's wedlock yoke retains. Why is Augustus' sister bright, where like betrothed league remains, from stately pomp of court reject? What doth devoutness her avail, to sainted sire who hath respect? What doth her virgin's life prevail? And Claudius now in ground laid, even we too much unmindful be, whose worthy steam we have betrayed, through fear that hath made us to agree. In breast our elders did embrace the perfect Roman puissance, the true unstained unworthy race, and blood of Mars they did advance the proud and lofty stomached train of lusty, haughty-minded kings. They could not suffer to remain within this noble city's wings, and justly they revenged thy death, O virgin chaste, Virginia pure, depraved by sire of vital breath, that bondage thou mightest not endure, and that his shameless brutish lust so good a meed might not enjoy, although by filthy force unjust thy chastity he would annoy. Thee likewise, whom thine own right hand with sword did pierce, Lucretia true, whose tyrant's rape could not withstand, did bloody broils and wars ensue, and with her proud disdainful make Lord Tarquin imp of cursed seed correction due, both Talia take for her unkindly, shameless deed, who on her father's mangled corpse to mischief bent and wicked bane, the Carmen she to drive did force his cruel bruising wombling wane, and quite against all nature's rule, even from her own dismembered sire, the sacred rites she did withdraw, denying wanted burial fire. This grief our woeful age doth feel through monstrous act against all kind, when, as in deadly crafty keel to tyrant seas and rustling wind, the proud presuming prince had put his mother trapped in subtle sort, the mariner's appointed cut, the swelling seas from pleasant port. The clash resounds with stroke of oars, the ship out launched apace doth spin, insurging froth aloof from shores, and ample course of seas doth win, which gliding forth with loosened planks in pressed streams with paced weight, the rifts do open closed cranks that hidden were with secret sleight, and gulpeth up the leaking wave, that the woeful roaring noise and cry, with women's shrieks themselves to save, do reach and beat the starry sky. Then grisly present death doth dance before their eyes with pining cheeks, whose deadly strokes and heavy chance for to avoid then each man seeks. Unrivened ribs some naked lie and cut the beating waves in twain, and some their skillful swimming try to get unto the shore again. The greatest part that sailed there by destiny's dire to men prefixed, in whirling swallows drowned were, the brinks of seas and ground betwixt. Queen Agrippina her garments rends, she tears her ruffled locks of hair, abundant blubbering tears she spends, through deep distress of fainting fear, who when no hope of health she spies, and flamed with wrath which woes appeased. O son, for so great gifts she cries, hast thou with such reward me pleased? This cule have I deserved sure, that bare and brought thee first to light, who empire witless did procure, and Caesar's title for thy right. Shew forth thy fearful spiritish face, O Claudius, thou from limbo lake, and of thy wife in wretched case, revenge and due correction take. Thy death I causeless did conspire, which now I rue with woeful heart. I dressed eke a funeral fire unto thy son by deadly smart. Lo, now as I deserved have, untombed go to thy guiltless ghost, enclosed in seas instead of grave, and wrestling waves of Roman coast. The flashing floors do flap her face, and on her speaking mouth do beat. Anon she sinks a certain pace, depressed down with certis great. Anon she fleets on weltering brim, and pats them off with tender hands. Through fainting fear, then taught to swim, approaching death and fate's withstand, at length on troubled seas displayed, she giving over and working vain, and tired with streams is weary laid, not able toiling strength to strain, in close and secret silent breasts of mates with her to see that yode, in whom no fear there rests, true faith unto their queen abode. Their ladies weather beaten limbs to help, some freely venture dare, some in the cumbrous water swims, and desperate danger do not spare. With cheerful voice they comfort her, though drolling, dragging limbs she drew, to lift her up with help they stir, and numbed corpse to strength renew. What boots it thee the death to shun of roaring, raging, ravening waves, from deadly sword of wicked sun? Alas, poor wretch, thee nothing saves, whose huge and heinous cursed rage against all course of nature's law, our after slow believing age will scarce believe it done before. The devilish man repined with grief when he his mother saved saw, from swallowed flowing seas have safe relief, and that she vital breath did draw. He grudged with grief, and in his heat he huger mischief heaps to this. He doth not once delay his feet, but headlong rashly carried is upon her death. The soldier sent dispatcheth that he had in charge. His lady's breast his blade doth rent, she yielding up her soul at large from wretched corpse for to entomb her slaughter man. She then besought the bloody blade within her womb that first this woe to her had brought. This accursed breast doth, quoth she, which this unkindly monster bear, from pinching pain may not be free. Dig, slash the same, no mischief spare. When this with faltering tongue was said, at last her sad and trembling ghost with latter sobbing sighs unstayed through gory wounds leaves vital coast.
Act 2, Scene 1, enter Seneca. On me with like consent, why didst thou smile with glossed looks, deluding me a while? O fortune, much of might and princely power, to lift aloft a noble royal bower, to the end that I, to honour's courts extolled, from stately seat might have the greater fall, and round about in every place behold such dreadful threatening dangers to us all. I safer lay aloof from envy's knocks, removed among the craggy coursy rocks, where as my mind there free at proper sway, with leisure did repeat my studies, A gladsome joy alone it was to view, and earnestly to mark the heavens so blue, and sacred Phoebus' double-wheeled wane, and eke the world's swift-whirling motion main. The sun so even his second course to keep, and Phoebe's gliding globes so swiftly sweep, whom wondrous starting stars encompass round, and to behold that shines in every stound the glistering beauty bright of welkin wine, than which all the world nothing beside. Of all this huge and endless work the guide more wondrous nature framed that I espied, for all the bumping bigness it doth bear, yet waxing old is like again to wear, and to be changed to an unwieldy lump. Now pressed at hand, this world's last day doth jump with boisterous fall and tumbling rush of sky, to squeeze and make this cursed kind abye, that springing once again it may yield out another strange renewed virtuous rout, as once before it did, new sprung again. What time Saturnus held his golden reign, that blameless, chaste, unspotted virgin clear, a goddess much of might, clept justice here, with sacred sooth sent down from heavenly space, to ease on earth did rule the mortal race, that people play knew not of warlike feats, nor trembling trumpets tunes that rends and beats the soldiers' ears, nor clashing armour bright, that warring wights defend in field and fight, nor wanted was with walls to rampire round their open cities set in any stound. To each man passage free lay open then. Nothing there private was to any man, and then the ground itself and fertile soil her fruitful bosom barred, all void of toil, into such bounden bairns a matron good, and peaceable unto so just a brood. But then another, second race arose, perceived not to be so meek as those. A third, more wise and witty, sought upstarts of nature forged fit to invent new arts, as soon unspotted quite with filthy vice. Soon after, though, they ranged with new device, that boldly venture dare in scudding race, unwieldy beasts for to pursue apace, and mighty weighing, struggling fishes great, with watery coats yclad with fishes' feet, with net in window wise draw forth, and streak with craft of quill the nibbling fish's cheek, and silly birds beguiled with pining train, and lightfoot deer for life that fling amain, entangling gins entrapped that safely hold, and sturdy scowling visage bulls controlled, on fleshy fillet necks make wear the yoke, and earth ere that ungrubbed up that broke, which then turned up with ploughman's shining share, in sacred bosom deep her fruits kept there. But now, this age, much worse than all the rest, have leapt into a mother's broken breast, and rusty lumpish iron and massy gold have digged out that was quite hid with mould, and fighting fists have armed without delay, and drawing forth their bonds for rule to stay, have certain several jolly kingdoms made, and cities new have raised, now ruled with blade, and fenced either with their proper force, strange towns, or them assaults, the which is worse, the starry specked virgin flower of skies, which justice height that guilty folk descries, now lightly esteemed of mortal people here, each earthly stound is fled, and comes not near. The savage mannered rout, and beastly rude, with dabbed wrists in gory blood imbrued, the great desire of grisly war is sprung, and raping thirst of gold it is not young. Throughout the world a mighty, monstrous vice, foul, filthy, monstrous lust have got the price, a pleasant, tickling plague, whom longer space and error deep have fostered up apace, the heaps of vice racked up in years long past, abounding flow in these our days at last. And this same troublous time and cumbrous age oppresseth all men sore, both young and sage, wherein those wicked ways that be do reign, and cruel ramping woodness spoils again, lust strong in filthy touch doth bear a sway, and princes riot now doth catch away, with greedy paws to bring it to decay, whole worlds incredible wealth without delay. But lo, which staggering steps where Nero flings, and visage grim, I fear what news he brings. Act 2, Scene 2, Nero, Prefectus, and Seneca.
Dispatch with speed that we commanded have. Go, send forth with someone or some other slave, that Plautius' cropped scalp and Silas eke may bring before our face. Go, some man seek.
I nil protract your noble grace's hest, but to their camps to go am ready pressed.
Against lineage naught should rashly pointed be.
A light thing 'tis for to be just. I see for him whose heart is void of shrinking fear.
A sovereign salve for fear is for to bear yourself debonair to your subjects all.
Our foes to slay a chieftain's virtue call.
A worthier virtue 'tis in countries, sire, his people to defend with sword and fire.
It well beseems such aged wights to teach unbridled springles young, and not to preach both to a man and prince of riper years.
Nay, rather frolic youthful blood appears to have more need of counsel wise and grave.
This age sufficient reason ought to have.
That heavenly powers your doings may allow.
A madness 'twere to gods for me to bow, when I myself can make such gods to be as Claudius. Now I count it is, we see.
So much the more, because so much you may.
Our power permits us all without delay.
Give slender trust to fortune's flattering face, she topsy-turvy turns her wheel apace.
A patch he is that knoweth not what he may.
A prince's praise I compted have all way, to do that same which with his honour stood, not that which frantic fancy counteth good.
If that I were a meacock or a slouch, his stubborn clubbish door would make me crouch.
And whom they hate with force they overquell.
Then dint of sword the prince defendeth well.
But faith more sure defence doth seem to me.
Full meet it is that Caesar dreaded be.
More meet of subjects for to be beloved.
From subjects' minds, fear must not be removed.
What so by force of arms you do wring out, a grievous work it is to bring about.
Well, hardly then our will let them obey.
Will nothing then but that which well you may?
We will decree what we shall best suppose.
What people's voice doth jointly bind or lose, let that confirmed stand.
Sword's bloody dint shall cause them else at me to take their hint.
God shield and far that fact from you remove.
What then, why, Seneca, do you that prove that we contemned, despised, and set at naught, with finger put in hole, full wisely wrought, our body's blood to seek should them abide, that they might us sometime destroy unespied? Their native country bounds to banished be, nor Plautius pressed, nor Silas eke we see, hath broke or tamed, whose cankered churlish ire shapes bloody freaks to quench our bodies' fire. And chiefly when these traitorous absent clowns such wondrous favour find in cities' bounds, which those same exiles lingering in hope doth feed. Suspected foes, with sword we will outweed. And so, Octavia, shall that jolly dame continue after them their bloody game, and wend that way her now white brother went. Such high, mistrusted things must needs be bent.
It is, O Prince, a worthy, famous thing, amidst redoubted lords alone to ring, and wisely work your country's praise to save, and well yourself to captive folk behave. From cruel, brutish slaughter to abstain, and void of mood to wreak your angry pain, and to the world a quiet calm to give, that all your age in peace their lives may live. This is a prince's praise without all crime. This is the path to heaven whereby we climb. So is Augustus, prince and father called, a far country first in star-bright throne is stalled, whom as a god in ministers we adorn. Yet troublous fortune tossed him before, a great while long on lands and ruffling seas, until his father's foes he could appease, and through war's diverse course could quell them quite. To you did fortune yield her power and might, and reins of rule without all blood and fight, and to your beck both land and seas hath bent. Grim deadly envy daunted doth relent. The Senate lords gave place with free consent, the battleless rout of knights with willing hearts. That same decree from sager sires departs, unto the laymen's choice do well agree. Your grace, the spring of peace, they count to be, and chosen judge and guide of mortal stock. Your grace, your country's sacred sire, doth rock and rule with princely gorgeous title bright, the circled world in roundel wise he dight, which mighty mounting name to keep so great. This noble city Rome doth you entreat, and doth commend unto your royal grace her lively limbs in charge for your lives' space.
The gift of gods it is, as we discuss, that Rome with Senate sword doth honour us, and that the fear of our displeasure great from cankered envious stomachs maketh sweat. With humble talk and supplications meek, and were not fear, all these would be to seek. Unwieldy, cumbrous cities, members ill, that prince and country both do seek to spill, to leave alive, which swell and puffed be, because of lineage great and high degree. What madness mere is it when as we may, even with a word such freaks dispatch away. Sir Brutus stern, his bronzen arm did dight, his sovereign liege to slain by force and might, that erst had holpen him and given him health, and had endued him with princely wealth, in front of raging war undaunted out, that vanquished many people strong and stout. Prince Caesar, matched by great degrees of power, to Jove in stately chair of starry bower, by devilish citizens wicked while was slain. What store of bloody stifling streams on mould did tattered Rome of her own limbs behold? He by his noble virtues worthy praise, whom people's common root to heaven doth raise. August among the gods is sancted well. How many noble breasts did he compel? How many springalds young and hoary heads, which each were each were disposed to lig in molded beds. How many men did he bereave of breath to for prescripta were condemned to death, when for the grisly fear of deadly dart from proper home they were constrained to part, and fly Octavia's force and Lepidus' might, and not abide stern Antonius' sight, which then the ample world at last once did guide, that into kingdoms three they did divide, to dumpish sadded sires with heavy cheer, their children's grisly cropped pates appear, they hung out before in the Senate's judgment seat, for each man to behold in open street. Nay, durst they once lament their piteous case, nor inward seem to mourn to Claudius' face. The market stead with more blood from bodies spewed, and loathsome matry streams is all imbrued. And quite throughout their faces foul arrayed, piteous gubs of blood dropped down unstayed. Nor here did this same slaughterous bloodshed stay. Philip's Pharsalia ghastly fields each day, the croming, ravening fowls and cruel beasts long fed, with goblets big of manly breasts. Beside all this, the cost he scoured quite of Sicil's sea, and ships to where I died, with force of arms did win, and havoc made of proper subjects slain with his own blade. The rundle round of lands with mighty mane, of noble chieftains, stroke with reboils again. Antonius, overcome in naval fight, to Egypt posts in ships prepared to flight, not looking long to live, nor hoping life, incestuous Egypt to Antonius' wife, that worthy Roman prince's blood did suck, and covered lie their ghosts with dirty muck. Long wicked waged civil war there stayed, in Mark Antonius' grave with him he laid. Augustus at the last of conquest great, his dulled swords that wounded souls did beat, in peaceable sheaths reposed hath laid a rest, and fear doth rule and guide his kingdom best. By ready force of arms at all assays, in captain's faith he shields himself always, whom now his sons must most worthy virtuous praise, to heaven a consecrated God doth raise, and causeth all in churches for to place. The sacred picture of Prince Claudius' grace, and us the starry reign of gods shall bide, if first with a dreadful sword about us wide, we wipe away whatso our persons stain, and found our court with worthy stem again.
Your noble spouse, sprung forth of sancted peer, of Claudius' stock, the star-bright diamond clear, that goddess Juno, wise, her brother's bed, partaking, pressed down with buttocks red, your grace's princely court shall garnish gay, with wondrous heavenly fair descended stay.
Incestuous married dames from stock and stem did tract all hope that we should have of them. Nor us, nor could she once love that we could see, nor with our person once at all agree.
In tender budding years, when love suppressed, with blushing hides the flames of burning breast, scant plain appears the love they bear indeed.
Thus we ourselves with hope in vain did feed, although undoubted signs as body ride, and frowning looks which we have oft espied, her spiteful hating stomach did bewray, which she doth bear, whom duty binds to obey, which yet at last, big boiling grievous pain, with death determined, hath to venge again. We have found out, for birth and beauty's grace, a worthy make for such an empress place, to whom that lovely goddess Venus bright, and mighty Jove his spouse that Juno hight, and goddess fierce in boisterous warlike arts gives place for bodies seemly portrayed parts.
Faith, meekness, manners mild, and bashful shame of spouse, those ought an husband to reclaim. The pearls of judging mind alone remain, not subject once to any ruler's reign. The passing pride of beauty's numbing grace each day appalls and blemisheth apace.
What praises women whites have in them closed? All those in her alone hath God reposed. And such a peerless peer, the guides of life, the destinies would have born to be her wife.
O noble prince, such blind unlawful love do rashly credit naught from your remove.
Whom Jove cannot compel, whom Jove cannot repel, that rules the crowds. Yeah, sorry. Whom Jove cannot repel, that rules the clouds, and piercing raging floods threat therein him shrouds, and rangeth through the pain of Pluto's pit, and pulleth down in welkin high that sit the mighty powers of heaven, the god of love. And can I then his force from me remove?
Swift-winged Joves, man's fancy fond in vain, a mercy wanting God to be, doth feign, and arms his hands with wounding weapons keen, and bows with burning bronze for lovers green. Of Venus to be sprung, they all accord, and blindly forged of thunder's limping lord, bland Jove, the mind's great torment sore appears. Or is that love? Was that love? Bland love. Maybe it is. Bland love, the mind's great torment sore appears, and buddeth first in frolic youthful years. Who, while we drink of fortune's pleasant cup, with lazy pampering riot is nestled up, whom if to toss her up you leave at length, it fleeteth fails away with broken strength. This is in all our life, as I suppose, the greatest cause how pleasure first arose, which sith mankind by brooding bideth aye. Through gladsome love that fierce wild beast doth sway, it never can from manly beast depart.
This selfsame God I wish with all my heart the wedlock lights to bear before our grace, and fasten Poppaea sure in our bed place.
The people's grief might never yield to it, nor virtue can the same at all permit.
Shall I alone to do forbidden be, that every patch may do? That grieveth me.
No trifling toys the people looks to have of him that ought to rule with wisdom grave.
It pleaseth us, which should with daunted power to try, if people's rash conceived rage will fly.
Seek rather for to please and calm their mood.
Ill-ruled is that reign, where people wooed their subject prince doth wield as they think good.
When naught that they require they can obtain, they justly then aggrieved are again.
That gentle prayers cannot win with ease, by force to wring it out it doth us please.
An hard thing 'tis the people not to have that of their prince, which they do justly crave.
And horrible 'tis a prince to be constrained.
Let not your subjects then be so sore bereined.
Why then the common brute abroad will be, how that the people that will have subdued me.
That no man's trust that is of credit light.
Be it so, yet many it marks with deadly spies.
With country peers to meddle it is afraid.
To quip and frump 'tis nothing less dismayed.
Your grace may easily couch that budding bruit. Let sainted sires deserts with pliant suit your grace's mind remove. Let spouses age and courteous bashful shame disrump your rage.
Leave off, I say, that we intend to grutch, for now your talk our patience moveth much. I pray you let it be lawful to do that Seneca giveth not advice unto, and we our people's wishes do defer, while Poppaea feel in wumbling womb to stir the pledge of faithful love to me and her. Why do we not appoint the morrow next, when as our marriage pomp may be context?
End of Act 2. So yeah, Nero's listened to everything everyone said and go, no, I think I'm good. I'm just gonna marry somebody else because they're pregnant anyway. So yeah, Octavia's screwed, and frankly, Seneca's a bit screwed after having this conversation with Nero. Nero's not going to forget this, is he? Surely not. Oh, come on. Yeah, I did enjoy Seneca very much. I'm enjoying this generally, actually. We've found with some of the Senecan or translations that they've been quite hard work. But actually, this is reasonably fleet of foot. I mean, yes, it's got all the classical, neoclassical trademarks of long speeches and stuff. But the speeches are to a purpose most of the time. They do occasionally go on tangents, but there is a theme, there is a thesis, there is an argument that's going on here. I'm generally going with this one quite happily. Thoughts from the room before we clamber on into the final acts of the play. Angela,
I have a complaint to make.
do you now?
What is it with the fact that these women, the only speeches they just say I'm miserable, and they just keep on saying I'm miserable at length, and this is not the first time. So I'm just raising a complaint right now.
I will send that duly to the complaints department. We have a time machine for such purposes to just that. But no, you're absolutely right. The nature of the Octavia and Nutrix. I mean, you could argue Nutrix is it depends on whether Nutrix is a male or a female nurse. In that sense, whether they're getting a word in edge, putting forward a different female point of view. But yes, it is a good point that that does seem to be something that happens rather a lot. Octavia could do more, probably, maybe. Tom.
Yeah, I'm enjoying the language. Somebody mentioned that it's very much similar to the times we're living in, and I think we don't use strong enough or passionate enough words to describe what is happening. So it's really refreshing to hear something like this just sally forth, because it seems to be touching on the things that the language we should be using now, instead of this very poor, almost pathetic excuse of the language.
Eric.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. I mean, it's kind of like when Nero and Seneca are arguing, it just feels like, yes, I have heard all your advice and I'm not going to take any of it. But also kind of, I don't know, it feels very much like, Godfather kind of vibes. It's like, I made him an offer he could not refuse. And it just, some of the words are great, like wombling, just saying that fills your mouth.
Yeah, we've had a lot of wombling and wambling in these translations. It does seem to be a favourite. It will drop out of favour. We've got it in some medieval texts as well. So it's not just being made up or coined for this. It is something we're going from. Okay, we need to unfortunately carry on and take a very short segue into Act 3. It's not a very long act at all. So we've heard about Nero's mother. Didn't have a happy time. I don't think this is going to please Angela. Act 3, Scene 1 is the ghost of Agrippina turns up. Through paunch of riven earth from Pluto's reign, with ghostly steps I am returned again. In rivaled wrists that blood do most desire, for guiding wedlock vile with Stygian fire. Let Poppaea, which these cressets coupled sure, unto my son be joined in marriage pure, whom mother's grief and hand revenging racks shall send with heave and hoe to funeral stacks. I always do remember well beneath where piteous ghostly crawling souls do breathe the unkindly slaughterous deed which to our sprite yet unrevenged is grievous and of right. And for the good I did a cruel prize the deadly framed ship in crafty wise, and you reward that he gave me again for helping him to rule the empire's reign. And eke that night, when as I did bewail both loss of ship wherein we'd ended sail and mate's unhappy death, and while I thought for this accursed deed to have besought the gods to trickling tears, he gave scant time, but twice increased hath his devilish crime. Quite slain with sword, thrust through my body's bounds, and filthy laid through glory matting wounds, delivered safe from seas, devouring sup, in antique court my ghost I yielded up. nor yet his cankered and unsatiate hate. For all this blood doth Nero once abate. That tyrant dire doth rage at mother's name, and seeking ways my deeds for to defame, who threatening death to them that do withstand my shapes he dingeth down in every land. My princely titles large he scrapeth out in every place the whole wide world about, which my unlucky parents love did give too much unto my pain while I did live, unto a boy to guide, which now I rue, my poisoned make my ghost doth oft pursue, and in my face with burning brands doth fly. He stays a space with earnest talk hard by, and threateneth sore, and doth impute his death, and to me should have had, to me beneath, and now desires to have some factious wight that dare despoil my son of breathing sprite. Let be you shall have one to work this crime. I do require no long delayed time. Revenging sprite Erin, a death doth coin of life that wicked tyrant to purloin, sore smarting leaden stripes and shameful flight, and pinging pangs with thirst and hunger dight, that Tantalus sponged like thirsty mouths bethird, and Sisyphus' toil shall pass, and Tityus' bird, and Ixion's painful wambling wheel about, that teareth all his body parts throughout, although that tyrant proud and scornful wight is caught with marble stone, do strongly dight, and prince-like garnish it with glistering gold, though troops of soldiers shielded sure uphold their chieftain's princely porch, and though yet still the world drawn dry with tasks even to his will, great heaps of riches yield themselves to save, although his bloody help the Parthians crave, and kingdoms bring, and goods all that they have, the time and day shall come when as he shall, forlorn and quite undone, and wanting all unto his cursed deeds, his life and more, unto his throne foes his buried throat restore. Alas, unto what end is all my pain? Or in what case do now my vows remain? Whereto doth now thy rage and destiny's spite draw thee, O son, with brain benumbed quite, that to such monstrous heaps of ills thy dame, who thou with cursed mischief overcame, her wrath should yield? Oh, that ere to the light the sucking babe I brought thee forth in sight, and fed thee thine, fine with pap as princely born, the fierce wild savage beasts had rent and torn my womb, and bloody entrails all beforn, without all crime and wanting reason's pride, mine own dear dandling child thou shouldst have died, and fastened sure to me shouldst I behold the quiet place where ghostly souls be rolled, and see thy grandsires great of worthy fame, and sire Domitius eke of princely name, whom now both shame and wailing doth abide, that while they dure from them shall never slide, for which both thee, O cursed bairn, they may, and me that thee have borne give thanks for aye. But why cease I with hell to hide my face? Wife, stepdame, mother dire, in my life space. Woo! Act 3, Scene 2, Octavia and Chorus.
Do not, alas, thus sore lament, but rather yet your mourning stay, sith that the city whole is bent to celebrate this joyful day. Lest your great love and favour both, which I do count to be most sure, the more cause Nero me to loathe, and eke his bitter wrath procure. And I fall out to be the ground to you of many mischiefs vile. This same is not the first deep wound that I have felt now this good while. Far worse than this have I abode. But of these troublous cares this day shall I make an end, I trust in God, although with death he do me pay. No man to me shall No man to see shall me constrain, his bended brows knit furrowwise, nor step within the chamber reign of maid dressed up in bridal guise. Augusta sister I will be, and not his wife, as wont I was, but only pains remove from me, and fear of death I will not pass. Yet canst thou, piteous wretch, once trust thy cruel husband's father-law, or these few things to have so lust, while mischiefs yet in mind are raw? Now long reserved until this day, and these same marriage rites be past, thou shalt, poor wretch, without delay, a bloody offering die at last. Why thus, with tears disfigured sore, thy wonted home dost thou behold? Make haste to shun this deadly shore, and leave this staughtrous prince's fold.
Lo, see that day suspected long, and whispered fame in all men's ears, with glistering pomp of bridal throng, to us poor wretches now appears. And Claudius brood Octavia's grace, from Nero's wedlock place expelled, departed is whose spousal space hath Poppaea conqueror long time held, the while our piety couched lies, kept down with heavy cumbrous fear, and slow revenging grief likewise, where doth the people's power appear, that break the force of princes great, that conquerous city laws hath framed, that worthy men to honor's seat preferred, that war and peace proclaimed, that savage people strange to tame, that kings and princes called in fight, shut surely up in prison frame, to keep them close from all men's sight. Lo, which we cannot once abide, to see where Poppaea's image trim, conjoined unto Nero's side, all glistering bright, shines very brim. That force of arms pull down that frame, and march with ground that lady's face, too likely carved to his name, and snatch her down from bedding place, and let it forthwith fly with brands, with darts and javelins fiercely flung, from pretty broads and sturdy hands unto the prince's courtly throng.
And we go into Act 4, mini Act 3 there, of Ghost and Octavia and Chorus discussing of things. Act 4, Scene 1, we now meet Poppaea, who is talking to Nutrix.
From out of spousal bower, dismayed with fear, whither go you? What secrets, daughter dear, unknown makes you to look so drowsily? What sponge-like looks your face with tears from eye that fell? Of truth the time desiring long, and wished for by prayers and vows among, hath shined bright. Caesar, wedlock are you? Your golden grace, whereof he took the view, him prisoner caught, and did him surely bind, so much the more how such Seneca his mind did seek to change, and wild from love to wield, and Venus chief in love hath made him yield. Oh, in beauty passing all, what beds then down more soft have borne thy weight, when thou with crown didst sit in midst of court and senate all? As thy great beauty aghast thou didst appall, whilst thou the gods with perfume sendest fine, and sacred altars drenched with thankful wine, thy head attired with veil of yellow hue, by Caesar's side thou wentst as princess new, when he aloft extolled above the rest, with haughty courage merrily went to feast, like as King Peleus went sometimes to take Queen Tethys, whom salt seas from foam bred his make, whose briding chambers banquet-wise I durst the gods vouchsafe to hallow with their hearst. Both they that rule in skies and eke in seas. But tell, O lady, tell, if it you please, what sudden chance does shade your beauty's light? What means your colour change from red to white? What moves those trickling tears? How stands your plight?
It's with dreams and grisly slights this last night, nurse. My mind was troubled sore, but frayed much worse. For when Sir Phoebe his weary course had rid, while quiet resting night each thing she did, my senses weary fell and slumbered deep, while Nero me within his arms did clap. Resolving limbs at length gan sleep discharge, and long I rest not under quiet's targe. For lo, I saw a root that brought me fear come to my chamber with dishevelled hair. The matron sage of Latin land did mourn, and sounded shrieking sighs as though forlorn that were they were the dolefulest wights that live on ground. And oft among the warlike trumpets sound, I saw my husband's mother terribly stand, with threatening look bewrayed with blood in hand. A light firebrand she bare, which oft she shook, and made me go with her through fearful look. When down we came through open earth, she led the way. I after went with bowing head, and musing much thereat. Mark what I say. My bed, methought I saw, wherein I lay, when first espoused I was to Ruth Crispin, and he, methought, with the first son of his line, with many following them against me fast, did come, and me to collect did swiftest haste, and as he wanted was he kissed me oft, and then rushed into my house with pace not soft. Amazed Nero saw Crispin's breast that hid his falchion keen. Fear shaked off rest from me. I trembling stood with quivering fear, and breast dismayed to speak made me forbear. Till now, O nurse, I met with thee, whose trust and faith into these words have made me brust. Alas, what threateneth me is grisly sprite? What means of husband's blood that doleful sight?
The hidden sacred vein that moveth swift, with fancy we call by secret drift, when we do take our rest, doth show again the things both good and bad that broil in brain. You marvel that you saw you make and bower his ghostly funeral stacks at that same hour, round clasp closed in arms of husband new. Here too the brethren, the beaten breasts with hands you moved you, and maiden's hair on marriage day displayed, Octavia's friends with heavy hearts bewrayed, amidst her brothers both and father's hall, their heavy cheer for her unlucky fall. The dreadful blazing flame of fire before born, in Agrippa's hand your grace befallen, which you did follow straight, declare renown to you now, though every strive to keep it down. The seat you saw beneath you doth promise you your state to stand full sure, not changing new. That Nero prince in Crispin's throat did hide his sword, it tells that he in place shall bide, unknown to bloody rueful war for aye. Therefore, madam, pluck up your heart, I pray. Receive both mirth and glee, cast fear aside. With joy and ease you may in bower abide.
To temples high, where mighty gods do dwell, I will repair, and offerings to them fell in humble wise, their heavy wrath to appease, and me of mighty sleight and dreams to ease. My second wish shall be that this fear all upon my foes a sudden chance may fall. O nurse, pray thou for me some vows to make to the gods, that ghostly fear his flight might take.
And not to confuse you all, Act 4, Scene 2, we now shift to the chorus. It might be a different chorus. We're just discussing in the chat whether this is the same Nutrix. We don't think it's the same Nutrix. We think it's a different nurse on the side of Poppaea. And now we may have a different chorus as well, but we're not sure. But it's still read by Eric.
If stealth disclosed by babbling fame, if stealth disclosed by babbling fame, and lusty, pleasant, thankful love of Jove be true, who form did frame moves one to come from skies above, and did enjoy the sweet consent of Lady Leda's love's delight, who like a bull his labor spent, through flowing floods to carry quite Europa slyly stolen away. He will no doubt leave a rain of sky and Poppaea's love disguise the say, if he her sovereign beauty spy, which he might well prefer before fair Leda's sugared sweet delight, and I, whom he won of yore, amazed with golden shower so bright. Let Sparta now, for Helen's sake, of beauty bragging and fame uprise. Admit the Trojan herdman make of gained spoiled triumphant praise. Fair Helen here is stained quite, whose beauty bred such boiling ire that earth was matched even in sight with Trojan towers consumed with fire. But who is this that runs with fear oppressed, or else with what news brings he in panting breast?
Act 4, Scene 3, Nuntius joins the chorus.
What sturdy champion stout doth joy with glee our chieftain's royal bower safe to see? Then to his court I counsel him to wend, gainst which the populous rout their forth doth bend. The rulers run amazed to fetch the guard, and armed troops of men their town to ward. Nor woodness rash court through fear doth cease, but more and more their power doth increase.
What sudden rage doth beat their broiling brain?
The garrisons great with fury astound again, and stirred up for Queen Octavia's sake, with monstrous mischief vile, their rage to slake. They rumbling rush into the palace far.
What dare they do, their counselors who are?
Advance their empress old, subvert the new, and grant her brother's bed as is her due.
Which Poppaea now with whole consent doth hold?
Yea, that unbridled rage in breast unrolled, set them agog and makes them wondrous wood. Whatever image graven is marble stood, if Poppaea's badge is bare, or if in sight it tended for to show her beauty bright, though it on heavenly altars brave did stand, they break or pull it down with sword or hand. Some parts with ropes sure tied, they trail them forth, which spurned with dirty feet as though naught worth. With filthy stinking mire they it all bewray, and with their deeds their talking doth jump agree, which mine amazed mind think true to be. For fiery flames they threat for to prepare, wherewith to waste the prince's palace fair, unless unto their furious mood he give his second wife, and with Octavia live. But he by me shall know in what hard stay the city stands, the rules I'll obey.
Alack, what made you cruel wars in vain to move? Sith prisoner love you cannot gain, you cannot him overcome. Your fiery flame he recketh not. His sire overcomes the same. He darkened hath those thundering thumps that shake heaven, earth, hell, sea, all things that makes to quake. Yea, mighty Jove in heaven that wears chief crown, his flames from welkin high hath brought her down, And you, not victors now, but vanquished, shall ransom pay. The price of heart's blood red. Love patient cannot be, but hot in rage. No easy thing it is, his wrath to assuage. Achilles' worthy wight that was so stout, to twang the harp he made in ladies' rout. Prince Agamemnon stern that boy benumbed, and rabble rude of Greeks with love brands burned. King Priam's reign he topsy-turvy tossed, at goodly cities great he chiefly lost. And now my mind sore frighted stands aghast. What Cupid's furious force brings us at last?
And Act 4, Scene 4, just to confuse you all, Nero enters, who is also Eric.
Our captain's slow dispatching coil, and our long-suffering ire in such a broil that streams of blood yet do not quench their rage, which they against our proper person wage. And that old Rome with courses strewed about, those cruel villains' blood doth not sweat out, but deeds already done with death to pay. A small thing is, a greater slaughterous day, the people's cursed crime, and eke that dame whom I suspect deserves the same. To whom yield those peasants would me make, at last she shall with life our sorrows slake, and with her body's blood shall quench our ire. What burning both and buildings fair, then shall their houses fall by force of fire. What burning both and buildings fair decay, what beggarly want and wailing hunger may, those villains shall be sure to have each day. Provender pricks that vile rebellious race, nay can they once our favor well embrace, nor be content with peace in quiet state, but a broiling ramp about with troubled gait. Hereon with boldness state, hereon they fly, with harebrained rashness headlong by and by. Well, they must tamed be with heavy stroke, and down be kept with pays of weighty yoke, that they with like attempt do not arise, nor once cast up their deadly peasants' eyes against our loving spouses' golden looks. First, punish them sure, then fear shall be their books, to teach them at their prince's back to bay, but see at hand whom faith and virtue rare, lieutenant chief of camps appointed there.
Act 4, Scene 5, enter Prefectus to Nero.
The vulgar people's rash unruly rage, the slaughter of a few did soon assuage, which long withstood our valiant force in vain. To tell your grace this news, I come again.
And is this then enough? Dost thou so well? O soldier Mark, what doth thy captain tell? Hast thou withheld thy hand fro bloody ire? Is this the due revenge that we require?
The captain guides of treason paid their hire, by desperate death of bloody sword in fight, the rout which sought with flaming fire to light.
Our royal palace great, who would assign their prince what he should do, and pull in fine our mate from us dissolving wedlock bands, whose hardy slanderous tongues and wicked hands her princely grace reproachfully withstands from due revenge, are they dismissed free?
Shall subjects' pain by grief assigned be?
It shall assign, which time shall never wear,
which neither wrath may end, nor yet your fear.
She shall appease our high displeased mind, who first all wrath due to find.
Declare whose death your mood doth most require. Let not my hand be stayed from your desire.
It seeks our sister's death, than traitor's head.
Those words through all my limbs hath stiffness spread, oppressed with grisly fear.
Us to obey, stands thou in doubt?
On faith, why do you lay so great a fault?
because thou sparest our foe.
Deserves a woman to be termed so?
If treason she begin,
Is any man so sure that her accuse of treason can?
the people's rage.
Those mad unwieldy wights, who order could?
Who could stir up their spirits?
No creature.
A woman could, in whom a mind Dame Nature hath upfold, to mischief probe. She armed hath her heart to hurt by wiles, yet strength she set apart. Least she undaunted force with her should bear. But now her slender power with doubting fear is quickly quailed, or else with punishment, which her condemned state to mischief bent, too late doth end. Away with grave advice, us with entreating seek not to entice. Dispatch that we command on shipboard borne, far off to shore aloof with dashing warn. Command she be, that tongue-like swelling breast at length in storming stomach may take rest.
And we have a final scene, Act 4, Scene 6, with the chorus and Octavia. And the chorus is once again Eric.
Sorry, I'm just laughing at this. Alack, the people's bitter love and dire goodwill to many one, which when they hoisted sails above, with pleasant blasts it made to groan, and carried them from quiet shore that fainting leaves them in the deep, and tumbling raging waters roar. Cornelia, piteous wretch, did weep, and sore bewail her son's estate. The people's love did undo them, and the wondrous favor bred them hate. Great worthy peers of noble stem, of high renown for virtue's praise, in faith and eloquence did pass, their stomachs stout their fame did raise. Its laws, the laws each one excellent was, and Scipio thee did fortune yield unto like death and cursed rack, whom neither honor's pomp could shield, nor fenced house thy foes keep back. Mo to repeat, although I could, pure present grief forbiddeth sore, her while to whom the people would her father's antique court restore, and brother's wedlock once again, now weeping, wringing hands, poor wretch, unto her cruel deadly pain the armed soldiers do her fetch. How safe doth poverty lie content, in thatched house safe shrouded there, high raised towers with blasts are bent, which often times them overbear.
Where pull ye me, poor wretch? Alas, into what banished exile's place would Nero have me for to pass, or fortune bids with frowning face? If now with fainting strength quite cooled, and with my broils all wearied cease, and longer life she grant me would, if that she work for to increase my sorrows greatly with deadly dart, why is she then so much my foe in country that I may not part and leave my life before I go? But now no help of health I feel. Alas, I see my brother's boat, this is the same, whose vaulted keel my mother once did set afloat. And now his piteous sister I, excluded clean from spousal place, shall be so carried by and by. No force hath virtue in this case. No gods there be my woes to wreck. The grisly, dreadful drab Erin doth weld the world at nod and beck. Who can lament my state, wherein I am, alas, sufficiently? How can Eden duly plain my smarting dreams of tears that I do shed, whose wings I would be fain, if destinies would them grant to wear? Then would I leave my mourning mates, as swiftly fled as wings could bear, and so avoid these bloody pates, then sitting sole in Sherwood shirl, and hanging shore by Danling twig, with plaintive pipe I might out twirl my heavy churned note so big.
The mortal brood is the destiny's guide. Themselves they nothing can assure that certainly doth steadfast bide, which our last day of life procure, whereof we always should beware, much dangerous chances for to try. Unto your troubled mind with care, now many samples do apply, which your accursed court hath brought to holden you in all your broil. For what hath more your troubles wrought? What doth against you sorrow toil than fortune doth? The first of all, Agrippa's child brought forth to life, whom we Tiberius' daughter call by law, and eke Prince Caesar's wife. Of many sons a careful dame, I cannot choose but now recount, whose worthy, glorious, ample name throughout the world doth much surmount. So oft with belly boldness that bear desired fruits and pieces pledge, ere long thou sufferest exile's care, stripes, chains, and bolts of iron wedge, and mourning much, which so did frame the death they caused thee to abide. So Livia, Drusus' lucky name, in male kind babes did headling slide into cruel monstrous deed, and death, sword piercing, deadly dart. Her mother's fate doth Julia speed to follow straight with all her heart, who after longer wasted time with bloody falchion keen was slain, although for no just cause of crime. Your mother eke that once did reign, who then esteemed of Claudius well, did wisely weld his court at will, and fruitful was, as you can tell. What could not her desire fulfill? She sometimes subject to her slave to death was put with the soldier's blade. What she that easily hope might have to the skies her reign who rise have made. Prince Nero's lusty parent great, first tossed with shipman's boisterous force, then torn with sword in prince's heat. Did she not lie a senseless corpse?
Lo me the tyrant stern will send to irksome shades and hellish sprites. Why, wretched, do I the time thus spend? Draw me to death, you, to whose mights false fortune hath bequeathed me. I witness now the heavenly power. What dost thou bid lame? Leave to flee, with prayer to gods who on thee lower. I call to witness Tartar deep, and sprites of hell, revenging freaks of heinous facts in dungeon steep, and sire whom death deserved reeks. I do not now repine to die. Deck up your ship, and hoise your sail, on frothing seas to winds on high. Let him that guides the helm not fail to seek the shore of Farian land.
O pippling puff of western wind, which sacrifice didst once withstand, of Iphigenia to death assigned and close in cloud concealed clad, did carry her from smoking airs which angry cruel virgin had, this prince also oppressed with cares, save from this painful punishment, to Dian's temple safely borne, the barbarous Moors to rudeness bent, then princes' courts in Rome forlorn have far more civil courtesy, for there doth strangers' death appease the angry gods in heavens on high, but Roman blood our Rome must please.
And thus ends the text. It's a really interesting structure to this. I mean, it's slightly weird, some of the structure. I mean, it sort of leaves some things dangling, and it sort of moves in and out of focus in places. It's like we meet Poppaea, but we don't really do anything with her. And it's a shame. There's some interesting stuff going on there. Did enjoy the ghost. Did enjoy the ghost of Agrippina. I said you might not like that, Angela. I actually thought she went down rather well, Agrippina. She was just going. Well, I'm dead, so let's get something going on. And actually, I quite liked some of the elements of what was going on with Octavia towards the end there as well. It was like there was, even though in a sense she knows she's doomed, it was less oh, I'm sad and doomed. It was much more, well, I suppose, stoic, and there was some interesting sort of qualities to that. And I like the way that that everyone was going in. Nero, this revolt happens because, of course, what he's been up to, and the Prefectus comes on and just goes, yeah, well, we killed some people. That seemed to quiet the crowd down. That seemed to do some work. Yeah. But I say structurally quite weird. It's sort of dancing around themes. It doesn't quite have a centre to it, as much as I would like. But feels performable, which we don't always say about the Senecas. Actually, sometimes we say you've got to do an awful lot of work to make it work. Whereas I think it didn't. It's not too long. We're not in extra time yet. That makes a difference. I like that too. So yeah, thoughts in the room as we approach final thoughts. But about this last sort of third of the play. How was it landing for people? I'll go to Angela.
I mean, I think it's interesting that some bits the chorus gave us are quite gory. The description of Agrippina being murdered, really, really gory. And yet, I mean, I must confess that I have just looked up what actually happens to Octavia, because you haven't got a clue. There's just nothing there at all. There's just like this vague stuff, and I'm getting on a ship, Whereas in fact, she's supposed to be going off to be killed. I mean, you do know that. He's definitely wants her dead. But weirdly, it all becomes very oblique, as it were, when it comes to that. So I think that's a bit odd as well. So I don't know why somehow Octavia's sort of been dealt with in a different way to Agrippina, who's like this really powerful figure.
Yeah, I think in staging it would become clearer, and I think it all the stuff is there. You're right, it is a little oblique, but it's just that she seems to have a sort of sense of of herself in a way that I'm not sure she did at the beginning of the play, and that there is something of a journey there. I think there's an awful lot of teasing and making that work, and it's not the best narrative in the universe. But there is something to play, if that makes sense.
She does change. I mean, there's a sort of shift somehow in mood. I think that's true.
But I say it does feel like there's sort of things sort of happen, but they're not quite connected together. It's like we have these sudden time jumps. There's no unities at play here at all. Tom,
I like the ending actually, in the sense that you don't necessarily need a punchline. There is a suspense. So you get that sense of time where somebody is being sent off on a ship. She knows her fate, but instead of having a punchline, you have this long pause where it's a nice time device, I think.
yeah, because in other almost every other Senecan tragedy, Act 5 is when the Nuntius comes on and goes, and then they died a horrible death. Let me tell you at great length about their horrible death. Whereas this is actually it's the exit of Octavia should be the that powerful thing that she walks onto the ship and exits the stage, and that's where it's going, and that could be very effective, done right, in a way that and it's quite nice that it's doing something different. This Senecan but not Seneca. Eric.
I like that it kind of leaves it open because, abroad, they don't usually kill strangers. They're more like, I mean, they might kill strangers, but in Rome, we kill our own people. So it's kind of like, yeah. Well, I understand the sentiment, but yeah, it's interesting how that is kind of left open, sort of.
Okay, so any additional final thoughts anyone wants to throw into the room? It's not perfect, but I have to say that I wasn't expecting anything quite as lucid as this, and that flowed as well. I mean, we've had some where we've really struggled to get the verse out. It does jump sometimes to some very odd phrasing. It's occasional striving for effect, but occasionally very effective. And yeah, I think this is much higher on my list than I sort of expected it to be. Eric, do you have any final thoughts to throw in to add? You don't have to if you don't have any.
I don't know. I enjoyed this. I mean, okay, I enjoy it. It's a very strange word to use for this kind of thing, but I enjoyed reading this because the rhyme helps you drive it forward, even if you don't know what the next line is going to be. You know that it has to rhyme. And because it's, as you said, it's not for teenagers. It kind of, I suppose. I don't know, it just feels easier to read, although it's hard to know where to put the punctuation sometimes, given that some of it is wrong. But also, I did like how you actually had dialogue, like sort of Prefectus turning up to go, yeah, you know, well, this is what's happening, and then Nero going, you know, we're just going to kill them. And then the Prefectus going, are we really going to do this? Like, this is too much, man. And sort of the way it plays out with Nuntius and the chorus, where, you know, it's basically feeding lines to Nuntius so we can get what is, you know, important without too much flowery business. Although we get the flowery business also, but it's not as much as in other tragedies. So we're not left wondering what on earth is going on.
Yeah, you know, even when people are making long speeches, it does feel like they're doing it in the same room as everybody else. Whereas sometimes you just have someone, I'm doing a long speech now, you know, hold my beer, I'll be back in 5 minutes. Whereas this, the long speeches is coming out of a situation and it feels more natural and flowing. Angela, do you have any final thoughts?
Only that, like Tom, I felt that there were great chunks of this about tyranny and injustice that I now want to go and post on social media because they so clearly speak to the world's issues today.
Yeah, and you know, that is thematically centred to the play. You know, you don't bring Seneca on unless you're going to have someone debating. You know, he's brought on to debate what Nero and a tyrant is doing, and it does actually work very nicely, and there's some really nice bits in there. Back to Eric.
Yeah, I was kind of well, amused is the wrong word, but entertained by like the chorus. I think it was the last bit, right, where the chorus is talking to Octavia and going sort of, yes, well, these are the previous examples of women that dealt with power, and this is how they ended. Therefore, you know, it's kind of like, yes, this is totally not going to happen to you. But
yeah, I mean, we don't see what happens to Seneca either, but you know, history does say Seneca's, you know, and the position that all of these people are in basically is not good. It's not a great emperor to be in the court of. You really want to be on a faraway province, eating grapes or something. You don't want to be at court with Nero because it's not good. Though of course, some of those histories are debated as to how bad Nero actually was. But, you know, he was a Roman emperor. None of them are really nice, honestly. Anyway, Tom.
Yeah, I loved the language. I thought it went along beautifully. There was some briar patches, and I don't know if rehearsal or just would get through that, or they just need to be cut. But the language itself was royal and rich, and yeah, it was deeply entertaining language, I thought. Sometimes sometimes I think it, as a reader, sometimes you got lost a bit because they were quite long. But,
yeah. Yeah. And as ever with these, it's a matter of, there's some judicious editing and also, some actual just straightforward editing. Our texts are a bit of a rush job this week, and we have struggled to get decent text of some of these Senecas. So there may be all sorts of things which will just make it easier to read in a, straightforward, just easier to physically read way, rather than understanding. Well, that's it for Octavia. Another Seneca or non-Seneca, pseudo-Seneca down. All that remains is to thank all the wonderful readers for their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, and goodbye. Pressed down with buttocks red.